Imagine watching the sun dip below the horizon in the ancient world. For a massive chunk of our history, we definitely weren't the hunters at the top of the food chain. We were the hunted. Every single time night fell, our ancestors had to face this completely terrifying reality. They were literally surrounded by powerful, hungry predators. That fading light, it signaled a radical shift in the balance of power. As the shadows got longer across that prehistoric landscape, creatures that were specifically adapted to thrive in the pitch black started waking up. This was a daily, visceral test of endurance. In this explainer, we're going to dive deep into exactly how early human families managed to survive in such a brutal environment, an environment where they were actively stalked, completely outmatched in physical strength, and forced to rely on entirely different and frankly amazing survival mechanisms just to live to see the morning sun.
So put yourself in their shoes for a second. How would you survive the night when you are the prey? Picture yourself trying to protect a sleeping family in pitch-black darkness. You're just huddled together out there on the dry, rustling grasslands, and you know for a fact that apex predators are out there. They're hiding just beyond your field of vision, basically waiting for you to show a single moment of weakness. When you're the prey, every snapped twig, every sudden gust of wind, every shifting shadow, it's a potential death sentence. The sheer psychological toll of living like that is honestly almost impossible for us to wrap our heads around today. Seriously, how do you ever close your eyes? How do you keep your kids safe when nature's absolute most perfect biological killing machines are actively tracking your scent, waiting just beyond the glow of the campfire?
And the environment itself, brutally unforgiving. Our ancestors were living in these vast, wild spaces. We're talking dense, echoing forests, deep, damp caves, and wide-open savannas where a threat could literally come at you from any direction. When night fell, they couldn't just lock a heavy wooden door. Their camps were basically these highly exposed little islands of warmth in an endless ocean of hostile wilderness. The darkness was absolute. And think about it, that darkness stripped away our primary evolutionary advantage, our daytime vision. That left early humans at the absolute mercy of a world that was entirely adapted to hunt, ambush, and kill in the blackness. The prehistoric night was absolutely not a time for peaceful rest. It was a grueling gauntlet of survival. And the things waiting in the dark? We are talking about the true apex predators of the ancient world. The savannas and forests were just crawling with massive lions, stealthy leopards that could drag heavily built prey silently up into the trees, highly organized packs of hyenas, and these absolutely enormous, aggressive bears. These weren't movie monsters. They were constant, physical realities sharing the exact same habitats as our ancestors. To a pack of starving wolves or a prowling saber-toothed cat, an early human camp looked like a pretty easy, vulnerable target. This threat wasn't abstract. It was a visceral, flesh-and-blood danger, and surviving it required constant vigilance and a really deep, fundamental understanding of how these powerful creatures operated. Because, let's be honest, the physical mismatch was just staggering. If we compare the physical traits, predators' advantages included razor-sharp claws, bone-crushing bite forces, explosive bursts of speed, highly specialized night vision, and thick, protective hides. Early human traits? Well, we had soft skin, no natural armor, incredibly poor night vision, and we were significantly slower and physically weaker. There was no way we were outrunning a charging beast on the open plains. In a close-quarters physical fight in the dark between a human and a prehistoric predator, the human is going to lose every single time. It was a complete biological mismatch. Relying on brute physical strength, that was a guaranteed death sentence.
So how in the world did we actually survive? Well, it's because survival required something way more profound than muscle. It demanded human intelligence. Since we couldn't outrun them, we had to outthink them. Acute environmental awareness, pattern recognition, and just relentless observation became the essential tools we used to level this terrifying playing field. Our ancestors really started to study the predators. They learned their habits, they mapped out their hunting territories, they figured out what terrified them, and they discovered exactly what kept them away. The human brain essentially became our ultimate evolutionary weapon. Instead of adapting our physical bodies to fight these beasts, we adapted our minds to outmaneuver them. That meant securing a camp wasn't just some random thing they did before bed. It was a highly calculated, daily survival ritual. Let's walk through the steps. Step 1. Select a safe, defensible shelter. As the sun got low, they'd look for a sheer cliff face to guard their backs, or maybe a narrow cave entrance to bottleneck any approaching threats. Step 2. Build a central fire. Right at the heart of the space, they built their fire, establishing the absolute anchor of the camp. And step 3, establish a lookout.
They understood intimately that if everyone fell asleep at the exact same time, it was total disaster. This deliberate preparation, finding shelter, building a perimeter of light, and posting conscious guards, that was the foundational protocol of ancient security.
Now, mastering fire is what fundamentally changed the balance of power. As the saying goes, fire didn't just provide warmth, it was a literal shield of light against the darkness. Wild animals have this deep instinctual fear of flames. The smoke, the intense heat, the crackling light, it completely disrupts their hunting instincts. By keeping a blazing campfire going throughout the entire night, early humans were building an invisible psychological wall that predators were absolutely terrified to cross. It kept the lions and hyenas at bay, and it created a glowing, safe haven for the sleeping family right in the middle of a brutally dangerous wilderness.
But of course, fire alone isn't always going to stop a starving, truly desperate predator. That's where defensive tools came in, as the critical last line of defense. We aren't talking about complex weaponry here. These were sharpened wooden sticks, heavy throwing stones gathered up from riverbeds, flaming torches pulled straight out of the embers, and early, fire-hardened thrusting spears. Think about it. Wielding a blazing torch and thrusting a simple wooden spear at a lunging leopard required just immense, unimaginable human courage. But these tools turned simple wood and stone into highly effective lifesavers. They allowed our physically vulnerable ancestors to actually hold their ground against the apex killers of their era. Still, no human could survive this world alone. They relied entirely on social defense. Basically, this means relying on the group's collective vigilance, highly coordinated teamwork, and rapid communication to deter threats. When danger approached, they didn't just scatter in a panic. They formed a unified, impenetrable front. The strongest, most capable adults would immediately form a physical barrier, standing shoulder to shoulder, gripping their spears and actively shielding the young and the elderly right behind them. By doing this, they made themselves appear larger and infinitely more dangerous as a collective unit. Our strength was literally never in our muscles, it was always in our numbers and our unbreakable commitment to the pack. Which brings us to a really terrifying reality. Who stays awake when the camp sleeps? Imagine the immense psychological tension of the night watch. While your whole family is resting behind you, you have to sit by the fading embers, just peering out into the pitch-black void. You have to remain hyper-alert. The necessity was absolute. If that fire dies down, or if the lookout just closes their eyes for a second, the family perishes. Constant, quiet communication between the guards, things like subtle clicks, hushed whispers, or specific hand gestures, that was the only way to spot glowing eyes in the dark and rouse the rest of the camp in time.
But the amazing thing is, they didn't just survive the perilous night, they actually learned from it. Passing down the lessons of survival to the next generation was absolutely crucial to our continued existence. Whenever an ancient group survived a terrifying close call with, say, an aggressive bear or a stealthy leopard, that harrowing experience wasn't just forgotten by morning. Sitting around the defensive fire, the elders would use early language to pass these vital lessons down. They told vivid stories. They'd warn children about which specific shadows to avoid, how to recognize the distinct scent of a hyena pack, or exactly how to brace a spear. Education in the prehistoric world was, quite literally, a matter of life and death. If we look at survival strategies, the peril of solitude is pretty obvious. Individual survival meant being entirely solitary, facing a constant, extremely high level of risk, and remaining endlessly vulnerable to an ambush from literally any direction. It's a rapid dead end for a fragile primate like us. Cooperative survival, on the other hand, that yielded shared knowledge, combined physical strength, divided labor, and safely protected families. By choosing to stand together rather than apart, humans unlocked monumental intellectual and social strengths that no other animal on Earth could match. The solitary human is prey, but the cooperative group? That is a formidable force capable of mastering the prehistoric environment.
And finally, there's the immense, profound relief of the dawn. Surviving the night to see the dawn was everything. In the prehistoric world, every single sunrise was a hard-fought victory. Seeing the skies slowly turn blue meant that human intelligence, careful planning, and collective effort had triumphed over the raw, brutal danger of the wild for just one more night. As the light expanded and all those nocturnal predators retreated deep into their dens, humanity could finally exhale and safely step outside that protective circle of ash. It was a daily rebirth, and it was made possible only by the unyielding protective bonds they formed with one another in the crushing dark.
So what does this all mean for us today? It means that cooperation is humanity's greatest survival advantage. We didn't conquer the ancient world because we grew sharper claws or evolved thicker skin. We survived because we decided that protecting one another was profoundly more important than just protecting ourselves. That deeply ingrained instinct to band together, to share our hard-won knowledge, and to actively shield our families from the terrors of the dark, that was the evolutionary spark that allowed civilization itself to rise. So as we navigate our own modern world, it's really worth asking yourself, aren't we still at our absolute best when we remember that our greatest strength has always been and always will be each other?